Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Today we're going to 1865 during the months following the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln by the actor John Wilkes Booth. It's a familiar story to you students of the Civil War and of presidential history. Booth, the popular stage personality, making his way into Lincoln's box at Ford's Theater during a performance of Our American Cousin on April 14th, 1865, the shot of a pistol. Booth leaping from the president's box onto the stage, injuring his ankle in the process. A cry from Booth of Sic Semper Tyrannis, that's what they thought was heard, or death to tyrants. Booth making his way out of the theater onto horseback and fleeing the capital city to Maryland. The manhunt, the reward, the posters, the coverage in newspapers ruled in black, a sign of mourning to the president. Booth's eventual entrapment and capture and death in a barn in Maryland. All of this hit Americans with powerful pain and suffering, grief-stricken. They processed these unprecedented events, and they turned to art and music, in part, to pay tribute to the fallen commander-in-chief who had led the Union to victory and defeated the rebellion of the Confederate States of America. Of the many images related to the assassination, this haunting image of heads of Abraham Lincoln in the trees watching Booth as he escaped really grabs my attention. It's seared into my brain. This image is actually an illustration with photographic heads of Lincoln pasted to it, then photographed and mass-produced in a format called the carte de visite, also known as the visiting card or card photograph. It measures about the size of a modern trading card. It's relatively small. The photographer credited with this photograph is a man named Francis Hacker. His life dates are 1827 to 1904. He was a pioneer photographer in America, and he operated a gallery out of Providence, Rhode Island. Hacker's name is imprinted on other card photographs, including several illustrations and collages of Confederate President Jefferson Davis fleeing Richmond, reportedly in the dress of a woman, and then his capture by Union soldiers in Georgia. I want to share two examples of Hacker's work, both published in 1865 and both mass-produced. They're essentially political cartoons. So here's a look at the first one. You can see Jefferson Davis in a dress. He has his skirt hiked up to reveal a leg. It has a title along the bottom, Jeff's Soliloquy. He's holding a dagger in his hand. Again, this is by Hacker or published by Hacker. Hacker is not the artist, only the publisher of the photograph. So here's one. And here's the other one, actually showing a scene purported to be of Davis in his tent being captured by Union cavalry troopers. One of the troopers is lifting back the headdress to reveal the likeness, the visage of Jefferson Davis below it. The woman apparently to his side is Verena Davis or some other person who was helping. And then in the background is a caricature of a black man, apparently a servant to the Davis family. Another trooper stands by the side looking at the scene. So there you have a couple examples of the work that Hacker was producing in 1865. Now, let's get back to the illustration. It's a haunting image. We know that it was mass produced and therefore widely circulated, but we don't know how far and wide it was seen or by whom. Before I go any further about that particular part of the subject about who may have seen it, let me show you a couple of details just so you can really get a sense of the haunting quality of it. This is work of collage. These are images, photographs of Lincoln that were printed and then pasted to the illustration. In this, you can see Lincoln, his arms crossed, his suit of clothing turning a ghostly pale white color. And then behind that in the trees are images of Lincoln. Here's another detail where you can see more images. It's the same likeness of Lincoln, only reproduced and again pasted to this illustration. So there you have some close-ups. Now I want to get back to you about who might have seen this image. We don't know. We don't know how many images were sold, how far across the country it traveled, but we do know one person who was inspired by this photograph. He's a composer, and his name was Joseph W. Turner. His life dates were 1818 to 1894. Turner was based in Boston, not too far from Hacker's Gallery in Providence, Rhode Island. Turner wrote a ballad and music with the same title as the illustration, The Assassin's Vision. On the cover sheet of his ballad, Turner credits the illustration. He writes a note that says, quote, "This ballad was suggested on seeing the representation of the assassin Booth wildly fleeing through the forest on his horse, startled by the apparition of his victim appearing in the trees and around him." There can be no question that Turner is describing this photograph. Now remember, I said this is a ballad, and so that means there's lyrics. Turner's lyrics breathe life into the illustration. The lyrics speak to a wrathful God haunting Booth in the aftermath of Lincoln's slaying across the Maryland countryside. You'll notice a little sign tacked to the tree next to Booth. It says St. Mary's, which is his final destination. Let me read the lyrics to you. They will really breathe life into this photographic illustration. So here we go. The assassin rode on his fiery steed. His murderous work was done. In the darksome night, with fleeting speed, through woods his courser run. As he hurried away from the scene of death, on his brow were looks of despair. Before him, around him, the evening's breath told him God's vengeance was there. The pale moon beamed as onward he fled. The stars looked down from on high. The hills and valleys were crimson red as blood to the murderer's eye. He shuddered, he trembled, and oft looked around, and dreary seemed each passing breeze. And lo, the assassin at every bound saw a vision appear in the trees. Heaven had witnessed, he could not escape. The assassin's fate was sealed. Vengeance is mine, saith God in his might, as the vision that night revealed. The assassin rode on with trembling and fear, and mournfully murmured the breeze. Before him, around him, all vivid and drear, the vision appeared in the trees. So there you have the collaboration, the inspiration of two artists, one unknown who created this illustration, perhaps in collaboration with Francis Hacker, the photographer who published it and mass produced it, and Joseph Turner, the composer and balladeer who, inspired by the visage of Booth on his horse, encountering an apparition of Lincoln in the night after he did the deed. So thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.